Okay, we've got Coach Edwards here. He'll have an opening statement, then we'll open up for Q&A. Again, remember for the Q&A, we have the microphone in the back there, so everybody can come up and ask their questions. Remember to just state your name and affiliation, and to speak loudly and clearly into the microphone. Thank you. Coach, go ahead.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. Just viewing it from where I sit, I've been fortunate enough to talk to a lot of the student athletes that have represented these universities today, and the universities are in good hands with our student athletes. The way they represent themselves, when you hear them speak and they talk about their programs, I think that's very, very important. And we have two young men in the back there, Kyle Soley and Ladarius Henderson, that have been in our program. Kyle, for one, has been in there 5 years, and Ladarius has been there 4. And can't thank them enough for what they've done this week representing their football team. ASU University as well. Next thing I'm going to comment on is, before I open up for questions, is I've never taken so many elevators in a day. I'm elevated out right now. I don't know what button to push, what floor I'm going to, but I know there's a lot of elevators in this building, and they all work, which is good. So I'll open up for questions.
All right, if you have a question, go ahead.
Herm, Chris Cartman, right here.
Where are you at, Chris?
Center.
See. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Chris Cartman, Sun Devil Source, 24/7 Sports. When you have so many new players that you're going to have to rely upon this season, right out of the gate, what things do you have to do to be able to accelerate that development, especially in light of some of the challenges that you had last year?
Well, I think, Chris, like most programs now with the new model, which is free agency, I call it, your roster will change. I'm accustomed to that. I dealt with that in the National Football League. I think, but you make a great point. For us, we have 43 new players. Right now, it seems to me from afar, when I watch them gel, I watched some of them in the spring, now we've added some more, a very tight knit group of guys, in my opinion, what I've seen. But the point is, how will they play together? How will they collectively come together? And I think you probably won't know that until after the third week of competition, of what kind of team. You have these aspirations of doing certain things, but I think after 3 weeks, you're going to figure out how they play together. And I've told the team that. And then you can determine what type of team you are, and that's the fun part about coaching.
I know that you're used to smaller rosters on NFL, but you're thin in certain spots, at least on scholarship numbers, wide receiver, linebacker. So what do you think about just that challenge and needing guys to stay healthy and elevate their play?
Well, you're right. We lost 11 guys last year off that team. Some of them drafted, others were signed as free agents, and all of them graduated, which is really good. But the receiver core was hit some. Some guys decided to go other places. And it's a group of not a lot of experience, some talented players over there. Now, we brought in a couple guys with some playing experience. So that'll be interesting how that kind of facet of it comes together. There's some other parts, too, though, that need to come together. And I think that's the uniqueness of our team right now.
And you had some of these players transfer after spring football. How much of that do you think was NIL related, and your thoughts about how NIL has sort of changed a lot of the talent acquisition component?
Well, I think we'll all be naive if we didn't think some of that was part of it. I would say more than some of it. But that's the landscape in which we are now in. And I think every coach understands that. That's a big part of it, and we know it. And I think we all saw the noise of the train coming down the track, but the train is here now. And how you adapt to it and how you go about coaching going forward, you have to adjust. And I think we're all able to do that, and that's where it's at. It's not going to change.
Hi, Herm. Doug Haller, The Athletic. Since we last saw you guys in spring ball, you added a quarterback, Emory Jones from Florida. Can you just maybe describe what he has brought, what you've seen from him so far, and how he may help you?
Great work ethic. Has some leadership qualities that you like, and he has experience. That helps you. It'll be interesting at that position how that all boils out. There'll be some competition, as you know. But with that being said, you got to make a decision sooner than later at that position, because it's probably the most important position on any football team at any level. And you got to get that one right, and you got to get him in place so he can play with the players that he's going to play with on offense. So there'll be some competition there, and then we're going to have to make a decision.
Hey, Herm, Joe Reedy from the Associated Press.
Yes, sir.
Just wondering about the addition of Brian Bilick as an offensive analyst and, you know, him and Marvin reunited again, but, I mean, definitely a lot of experience among your two special assistants.
Well, we do, and we all go back, as you guys, I don't know if you guys know, but Brian was at BYU when I had left Cal and went to San Diego State, so I played against him in college. So we all kind of go back together, but it's another set of eyes. Our offense has changed somewhat from last year a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of looks for us, but it's good to have him in the building. It's just another set of eyes, more information, and he's excited. And you know, he's been in and out of the building. He's not there every day like Marvin, but he'll be here for camp. We obviously show him the video all the time, so he's well aware of what we're trying to do.
Herm,
Yes.
any particular areas, secondary, passing game that you are sort of really focused on that could have a big determining factor in whether you guys can play to your expectations this year?
Well, I think a couple positions. You mentioned the wide receiver core, the corners. Two of our corners were drafted, as you know. Who's going to man those positions? The offensive line, we lost some guys, but we brought in some guys with some playing experience, which I think will help us. How that gels together. Brought in a fantastic runner. You know, how do we get that going, right? I mean, so at every position, a linebacker now, you got three guys that have played. Now the Soley brothers all of a sudden are playing together. That's unique, and they're excited about that. Defensive line, we're pretty stout up there if we can stay healthy. So I just think the tight end position, we brought in some tight ends. That'll be kind of fun to watch and develop. So there's numerous positions that I just think the more we get into play, the more we'll find out about those guys.
Hey there, Herm. Michael Lev with the Arizona Daily Star. With all of the changes that are taking place in college football, you know, super conferences, maybe we're going to have unlimited transfers, NIL, all of these things, how do you feel about the direction that the sport is headed?
Well, it's kind of funny when you say that, in the fact that the student athlete has a voice. And you just think about this conference alone. I can remember growing up on the West Coast, and it was the Big Five, Big Six. And that was what, in 1959 to 1964. And then it became the Pac-8, a conference that I played in at Cal Berkeley, right? And then from there in 78, it switched over, and it became the Pac-10. And then lo and behold, in 2011 or whatever it was, it became the Pac-12. And so I think sometimes we sit here and we just realize the era that we're in, that's what we remember, right? So if you're in this new era, it's like, this is what it is, well, let's change it. I say this, and I say this in a humbled way. Change is about growth sometimes and opportunity. And so, according to what and how you believe it and how you sit, it affects people different. I look at myself. And without change, I'm not sitting here. I don't sit in this seat. So I don't look at it like, well, this is going to mess up college football. No, it's going to change college football. There's no doubt about that. And the funny part for me is this, is that everyone trying to figure out what is it going to look like. We don't know. And it might change again next week. No one knows, but eventually it will change. Someone else will be sitting at this table. There will be new guys writing stories. And they'll be talking about, hey, you remember what happened back in 2022? That's life. That's just how it works. And we can hold on to whatever we want to hold on to. That's over with. You can't hold on to it. You got to adjust. And some will like it, some will not. That's just how it works now. And I think all of us are looking for answers. We don't have answers. We have opinions. And everybody can play commissioner and president and AD and all those people and say, I would do it this way. And that's great. But eventually, there's people with sound minds that are looking to do what's right for college football. And that's the bottom line. And I think the most visible thing that we all understand now, and maybe we kind of struggle with it, is the student athlete has a voice. And some people don't like that. Let me tell you something. We're just talking about football. How about women's sports? Let's don't forget them. They're involved in this too. Let's don't get them, like, push them to the side. They're student athletes as well. And that's the big picture of it all going forward. That's how I view it from where I sit. Sorry for the long answer.
And Herm, your thoughts about UCLA and USC to the Big Ten, the USC-UCLA departures to the Big Ten, how that might impact the conference and Arizona State?
I don't know if it's going to impact. I just think what's impacted is more than just the realignment of teams going to different conferences is how do you go about recruiting now? And what mechanism do you have in your conference to generate TV revenue, right? It's TV. It's driven by TV. Everyone sitting in this audience knows that. That's how it's driven. And how can you generate dollars for your programs? And that's what everyone's faced with right now. And that is how it works. And that's a new model, by the way. And everyone's trying to figure out what does that look like. And I'm just sitting here just watching it. And I don't know what it's going to look like 5 years from now and what recruiting is going to look like. I do know this. The player you have this season, you better re-recruit him when the season's over with. Because if not, he might be playing somewhere else. You know, and that's how it works. And you can't get mad because that's just how it works now.
Hello, Coach Edwards, Kenneth Berry, Touchdowns and Tangents. In regards to this team, what do you feel like is the team's identity so far? Or do you feel like have they carved that out yet?
Identity, I think, will our culture that has been probably in place for 5 years is that we have a toughness about ourselves. That's not going to change because it's coach-fed, but it's player-led. And the players, those two gentlemen back there, are part of that. Our identity always has been toughness and compete. And if you watch this team play over the last 4 seasons, that's kind of been who we've been. Now, we haven't won every game. We've lost some games. The sad part for us last year was the fact that some of it was due to our own error, right? And we got to fix that for sure. But it's always been toughness. It's always been compete. Just compete. as hard as you can compete, and then you can live with the result.
Thank you.
Herm, some of the players recently said that last year with the NCAA investigation, it was distracting just because players didn't know, what the coaching situation, the position coaches coming and going. Do you feel like the worst of that is behind you? Have things settled in that regard?
I think our players and our staff did a great job of having to deal with all that. And it's just another testament to the mental toughness that you guys had last year. And, when you go through things like that, it brings you together. This team is every season's a different journey. And when you lose some players and you gain some players, you're just trying to find out their identity. It's a pretty tight football team right now, what I've learned. And you're talking about 43 new players that chose to come here. I think we all get worried about the players that leave. I don't worry about guys leaving. Who are we getting, right? Who wants to come here? And we had a lot of talented players to sign on, and that's kind of fun to watch.
And in regard to the investigation, do you get a feeling that you guys are getting closer to the conclusion of that?
You know what? I can't comment on stuff like that. You guys know that, but we're getting ready to kick the season off. We practice Tuesday. We start practicing next Tuesday, which is going to be exciting for us. The players can't wait to get back on the grass, neither can the coaches. So I think we watch the NFL now. They're starting to go to camp, stuff like that, and first thing you worry about is you don't want to get anybody injured the first day of training camp, right? But our guys are excited about getting back on the grass, and so are the coaches. Thank you for the question.
Anyone else? Nope, got him in here.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned with Brian Bilick being at BYU at the same time that you were at San Diego State. What were your memories of playing Brian and BYU in '76?
He wasn't as good as he thought he was. I want to say, was Gifford Nielsen the quarterback?
He was, yeah.
It was a low-scoring game. I know that. Either team didn't get over 10 points, I don't think. And they beat us. I remember it was a very physical game. We had a pretty good defense. We played a lot of what we do now, cat coverage, man-to-man, and they had a lot of talented receivers, and we did a pretty good job of defending those guys, but it was a low-scoring affair. I mean, it wasn't like in today's world it's 30 to 40. It was kind of – I don't think any team got to 15 points.
Oh, yeah, 8-0.
There you go, 8-0. That's a fan favorite, 8-0, right?
Not a lot of defenses ever held a Lavelle Edwards team to 8 points, but I mean, obviously he transformed the game. How much did that sort of set the stage for how college football is played today in terms of offense and passing and that sort of thing?
I'm glad you mentioned his name. I was one of the first black recruits he recruited out of high school, Lavelle. I actually took a visit to BYU. And great man. I didn't go there. I ended up going to Cal. But it's funny because later on, when I played in the, I want to say the Japan Bowl or the Hula Bowl, one of those deals, he was an assistant coach for one of those teams. And we laughed and said, well, we finally get to coach me now, coach, and I get to play for you, right? But great man and had a vision. You're right, because that was kind of the deal of college football is kind of looking this way, and BYU, and they had the numerous quarterbacks to come through there, Steve Young being one of them, a good friend of mine, and other guys, obviously. But he was a little bit ahead of the curve. He was a great man. We all miss him, and great football coach.
We have a few more minutes. Any other questions?
Good.
No? Okay.
Thank
you
you
very
folks.
much, Coach. Appreciate
All right,
it.
Thank you.